going to talk about what to feed your smaller plants. So let's get right to that. So if you follow my channel, you'll know that this plant is no stranger. This is my Nepenthes truncata JB by Patian. It is one of my largest truncatas that I have, and it produces absolutely amazing pictures. Now, the thing about a truncata is they can handle Osmocote pellets as well as a lot of larger Nepenthes because they have a very stiff, sturdy pitcher. You got this beautiful one here. Very, very tough pitchers. Now, I usually try to feed this truncata once every 2 months. You can be a little bit more aggressive with the feeding, but I tend not to be. But there's a couple options here. Now, when I want to feed these, I want to feed them Osmocote pellets, and you want to put about 1 pellet in each pitcher. Some of your very, very larger plants, like truncata fipiata, you might be able to get away with 2, but I tend to do just 1, and you can put them in more than just 1 pitcher. Now, when I'm choosing my pitchers, I've got this big, beautiful one here. I don't want to use this one. Let's see if I can get it in focus, because I don't want to ruin it, and I want to be able to enjoy it. But I've got this one over here that is starting to fade, and that's what I'm going to do. So simply all I'm going to do is take 1 Osmocote pellet from this jar here, right there, and I'm just going to drop it into that pitcher. Now, what you can do is, for some reason, if your pitcher doesn't have enough fluid in it, you want to steer away from putting too much water because it will dilute the fluid. However, you do want to make sure that the pitcher does have some fluid inside of it, because if it doesn't, that Osmocote pellet is just going to sit in there and burn the side of your pitcher. So you want to make sure you do that. Now, if you do any more than just the 1 Osmocote pellet, you will run the risk of burning the pitcher. It doesn't necessarily going to set back your plant all that much unless you do a whole copious amount, but it will burn the pitcher up pretty quick, and then the plant won't get as much out of it as it needs. And again, you can do multiple pitchers. So let's talk about some other options before we move into the smaller pitcher plants, about what you can do to fertilize your plants if you don't want to go the sort of synthetic fertilizer route and you want to do something more natural. So if you don't want to use a fertilizer like an Osmocote and you want to keep things more natural, there are some options that you have. If you want to do a living option, and this kind of stinks because I love bugs, but love bugs are a really good option, and you can put out like 1,500 to 3,000. You can buy them on Amazon, and they come in bags. The cool thing about love bugs is they also help eat pests like thrip and mites. And so what will end up happening though is they will find their ways into the pitchers, and they do a very good job of fertilizing the plant, but also keeping your plant safe. Other options that you can do is you can use any sort of live bug, crickets, whatever you want. But if you don't want to go that route and you want to do something that's a little less, I don't know, you can do dried bugs. Now, they and a lot of pet stores sell these dried bugs. You can get the insects, and they're all natural. You can get the ones that aren't injected with nutrients. I use dried crickets a lot of times on my plants that are outside, and that will help subsidize these plants, or subsidize their diet rather, without causing any of that chemical stuff. I tend to use Osmocote pellets only in my grow tents, obviously because of the smell. You, however, can use, again, the love bugs work very well. I've done it before. They've killed off pests like thrip and mites and stuff, but they've also provided a great nutrition. The problem with love bugs, though, you can't necessarily control which pitcher they go in. So you'll have one pitcher that's got 30 or 40 love bugs in it, and then you'll have another pitcher that has none. So that makes it a little bit more challenging, but it does create a more natural feel. And if you can get an ecosystem built up, then they'll keep on reproducing, and there'll be an endless chain of food and protection for your plants. Now that we've talked about larger plants, let's talk about smaller ones. Now, you don't want to give the smaller ones the large crickets and or Osmocote pellets, but we're going to talk about what you can give them to help them grow. All right, so here's a couple small plants, and then they can also get smaller, like an extra small. When you're dealing with something like this, you do not want to give them an Osmocote pellet or even a large cricket or an insect like that, because it will absolutely kill off the pitcher before the plant is able to get the nutrients. However, there is options, and the option here is to use betta fish pellets and or fish flakes. They do a wonderful job on that. The betta fish pellets I like a lot because they're a lot cleaner, not as messy as a fish flake, and you just drop a couple pellets just like you would an Osmocote into a larger pitcher, and they will do the job, and everything will work out just great there. So I highly recommend that option. That is the option that I use when I'm working with my smaller plants. I will just drop a few betta fish pellets in there and be on my way. And again, with these, you just want to make sure you put a little bit of water in them if they don't have them. If they do have the liquid in them, do not add water to it, because let them do their natural thing with the enzymes that they have. Just think about this: anytime that you add water, you are depleting their natural enzymes, and so eventually that will cause the pitcher to not be able to break down the plant. So let's talk about, now that we've discussed this, what not to give your pitcher plants. Up to this point, we've talked about the things you should feed your pitcher plants. Now let's talk about things that you should not feed your pitcher plants. I see a lot of people make this mistake and it ends up costing them. Not necessarily life-threatening to the plant, but it does cost them as far as the beauty thing goes with their plants. You do not want to put live beetles in your pitcher plants. They will chew right through the side and then they will get loose, especially if in an enclosed setting like this. They will get loose inside your enclosed setting and cause havoc on your plants, especially if they reproduce. You also do not want to feed your pitcher plants slugs. If this slug is alive, it will do just the same. It'll chew right through your pitcher plant and it will go all through your grow tent or in your little greenhouse or enclosed setting and cause havoc. The other thing you don't want to do is you don't want to feed your plant any human food. Now, I like to consider these plants, and a lot of people call them meat eaters, but in reality, they're insectivores, and so they really don't want meat. Now, some of the larger plants will ingest rats and things of that nature, but that's not what they choose. That's not the top of their menu. They're gonna want insects and bugs, and so you don't want to give them any human food because they don't know how to break down those byproducts, and that can really cause some serious damage to your plant, not only just to the pitcher, but the plant as a whole. All right, so that's some of the things that we've talked about for what not to feed your plant. I want to show you a little bonus though. I want to show you some of the seedlings and talk about what to do with them. How do you feed them? How do you fertilize them? The answer might surprise you. All right, so here's some of my seedlings here. Now, what should you feed these little tiny pitchers? See them here? Barely can see them. What should you feed them? And the answer is absolutely nothing. So when they start producing their first pitchers like this, they will already start to eat the little insects that are down in there. The little larvae and stuff will crawl into those pitchers and they will do just fine without them. Now, when they get to about the size of a quarter or the pitchers get large enough to put a betta fish pellet in there, you can choose to feed them then if you would like. It is not necessary by any stretch of the imagination, but you can start to feed them at that point. But until then, sit back and relax and just let them do their thing and they will do just fine for you. All right, everybody, I hope you've enjoyed this shorter video, but I hope it's been packed full of information that you can use. There's a lot of confusion on what to and what to not feed your pitcher plants and when to feed them and when not to feed them. I like to do about every 2 months to feed them. You can get a little bit more aggressive than that, but you don't have to. Here's an extra bonus. If you have an ampullaria, not only will they eat insects, but they'll also eat leaves and stuff like that, other plant matter. So that's pretty cool. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you've gotten a lot out of it. And again, if you could please just like and subscribe and share this content so we can get it out as many people as we can. As always, if you have any questions at any time, please don't hesitate to reach out to me via comment or via Instagram. I'm always here to assist and to help you. I hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful week. See you soon. What's up, everybody? CHM Carnivorous here. And again, the right angle or the right way to take these videos still seems to elude me, but we are going to persevere nonetheless until I'm able to get a better setup to be able to record these channels. But what's important is the content, and so today I'm going to talk about sundews, and more importantly, how do sundews eat, what do they eat, and how you can feed them. So this should be a very fun video. I'll show you a demonstration on how to do it, and then we'll go through all those different topics. All that and more coming your way just a minute. If you're familiar with my channel, you know that I am very, very thorough, or I try to be at least, when I go through this and give you what these plants experience in all the different stages of their life, not just at full grown. Certainly I do miss some things, but I try to do my best at least to be thorough, and today will be no different. I'm going to talk about what these plants will eat, and not just at when they're full grown, but at different stages of their life cycle. And so first I'm going to talk about seedlings and how to feed those, because what you'll find with a lot of these sundews is that they are self-fertile and they will self-pollinate and create just tons and tons of seeds, and they will spread very fast. And so what these seedlings look like, I'm going to pan over here. All these little tiny green specks, that's not mold, those are tiny, tiny seedlings. This happens to be Drosera capensis. And so they will have anywhere from you know, 1 or 2, depending on how small the plant is, flowers on a stalk, upwards of 30, 40 or more. And each of those flowers will open only for a short period of time, will close, will self-pollinate, and then produce just hundreds, if not thousands of seeds. And those seeds have a very high strike rate. And so that's what you're seeing here. This is just from a few flowers, and there's just hundreds in here. Now, these are very, very, very tiny, and so feeding them, it would be just ridiculous. You potentially could, I do not recommend any sort of max seed or anything like that, because it's going to get on the soil and it is going to cause molding, and also these babies are very, very sensitive. At this size, I would recommend not doing anything. They will go through and they will get fungus gnats, they will get all these types of different nematodes and bugs that are living in the soil, and they will do just fine. Once they get a little bit bigger than this, certainly you could, if you depending on how tedious you want to be, you could feed them. But when you get to the quantity, and if you grow a Drosera capensis, you'll notice the quantity grows very, very fast. Just let them do it. Let nature take its course. Let them do the work, and they will take care of it for you. Now let's talk about a medium-sized plant. All right, what I've got in front of me now are some medium-sized capensis, Drosera capensis, with a pygmy sundew in the middle, flowering. These plants can take certainly fish food. At this point, I normally feed them a fish flake. They can take bloodworms. The only thing I will caution about bloodworms is if you use them too often, you can actually develop an allergy to them, which is pretty strange. But you can also use dried crickets, which I do. But if you are more squeamish and don't want to deal with all that, you certainly can use a max C fertilizer and just make sure it's quarter strength per gallon. So whatever the cup measure is, make that a quarter, and then it per gallon is what you want to put on there. But very, very important, any size for that matter of a sundew, but particularly when they're small like this, you want to give them small quantities. A little goes a long ways, and I'll show you an example here in just a minute what happens if you give them too large of food to digest, and what that ends up happening. So through all these just hundreds of flower stalks is a Drosera spatulata, and you'll notice there, if I can zoom in, that nasty mold. That is because there was, oh, that was my finger. That is because there was too much food given to that plant by me. And so the spatulata ate what it needed, and then what ends up happening is it develops mold. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be detrimental to the plant. It will kill the leaves where the mold is growing, but it's just unsightly, and it could lead to an outbreak. So you want to try to prevent that, and the way you do that is just to provide just a little bit of food, and I will show you what that little bit of food looks like just now. So here I've got fish flakes, and I have broken them down to probably a quarter to a tenth of the size that they are. They could be even smaller than this. You can get them down to almost a powder form if you want, and you can mix them with water and then put it in like a syringe to put it on the leaves. That tends to work. And so you want it to be very, very fine, and I'm going to try to do this, see if I can pull some up. Get some of that, and you want to just sprinkle it right on the leaves, just like so. And as you can see, if I can get it to focus, there's just a little bit on the leaves. Now, I would caution you to not do too many. Now, remember how these plants live in the wild. They're catching flies as they go around. Certainly, they get a lot of flies, especially the varieties like Banana, but they're not collecting just flies on every single leaf all the time, every day. And so they will only use what they need, and then the rest can potentially cause burn through too much of the too much of the minerals and vitamins that they need, and you might just give them too much if you overfeed them. So what I usually do is just do a couple of leaves at a time, and then that way they will be able to handle that without molding and without causing any sort of burn due to like too much nitrogen or something that they're pulling into their bodies. Now, as far as the schedule for feeding, I recommend feeding as soon as every week, or you can do every 2 weeks, and you can even go as long as a month. With your ones that are flowering a lot, you want to feed them probably that once a week schedule, because they will flower themselves to death. Like the spatulata capensis will flower continuously, but it tends to be more hardy. the more you feed them, the more they're going to flower. They're going to have the energy to do so. So if you're wanting to grow your collection at a very fast rate, then feed them weekly, if not bi-weekly. If you want to slow down your collection, maybe you don't have the room, maybe you don't need 1,000 Drosera capensis, then you can slow down the feeding and can go literally to the point of a year without feeding them, some of them, and they will do just fine. Now let's talk about the mechanism of how they catch prey and what that looks like. So here I've got a Drosera madagascariensis that I'm trying to pull back from the dead. The cool thing about madagascariensis, just to go on a quick little tangent here, is they will grow back from the roots, and they will grow a lot of them, but we'll share that for another video. You see how this leaf is turned flat or folded in on itself? That is because I fed it yesterday, and now it is digesting that food. Drosera are one of the few carnivorous plants outside of the Venus flytraps and Utricularia that will actually move. Now, the mechanism for movement is definitely not nearly as fast as a Venus flytrap, but what will end up happening with these is it could take upwards of an hour or two, depending on the species. Like a Brahmanii, it would happen pretty quick. But they will close up. If you had like a time-lapse camera, you could see it, and it's pretty amazing to see. But they will close up around their food, and then they will slowly digest, and when they're done, they will open back up. And in the case of fish food, more than likely there won't be anything left. But if it's something like they caught a prey, they will get all the nutrients out of that prey, will open up, and then there will just be a carcass laying on the leaves. Different ones will react. Filiformis, which I have in the background over here, will completely almost roll all the way to the base of the stem sometimes for their prey, depending on how big it is. And then something like a Bonata, which is right over here, if it's a large size prey, it will roll around it. If it's a smaller size prey, which it's pretty amazing to see, it will only curl in the tentacles where the food is. So let's say I got some food just on the middle portion of this forked leaf here. The tentacles where the food is will be what's curled around, and the rest will remain open. And I have to assume that's an evolutionary trait. That way it's not using all of its energy for one food, and it's got available room for other plants other insects to land on its leaves. One thing to note when you are feeding your sundews is you want to do your best to keep the food off of the soil, especially if you're using something like a fish flake that has a lot of additives in it. It will mold very fast, and you do not want to get a mold growing on these soils. These sundews are extremely hardy, a lot of them almost bulletproof, but they will definitely not be happy with you if you get a mold outbreak on the soil. So just do your best to try to keep them on the leaves, and they will love you for it. Now, what's really cool about these is as you feed them, the more and more you feed them, the more mucilage they will produce, along with sunlight or artificial light and enough humidity and water. But they will also produce more and more flowers. And so just to give you an idea, I've only bought maybe 4 or 5 capensis in my time, and this is probably only half of what I've had growing. I just recently started taking them more seriously. I've always looked at them as more of a weed, which was a huge miss on my part, because they are just amazing. And the more that you work with sundews, the more you fall in love with them, and you realize just how amazing they are. Really amazing plant. I highly recommend anybody get them, especially for newcomers to the carnivorous plant hobby. They're very forgiving for the most part. The tropical and some of the temperate ones, like the Bonatas, they are very forgiving. Some of the other ones, like tuberous sundews, I would not recommend for new growers because they are more cranky. And I'll close out with this, just a little factoid that's pretty interesting and shows just how smart in the evolutionary process these plants are. You'll notice with Venus flytraps as well, but with sundews, their flower stalks, for the most part, tend to be very tall. And that is in an effort to keep the pollinizers from getting eaten by the plant, so they produce very tall flower stalks. Also, as there's speculation at least that part of the evolutionary trait was to help hedge its bets, some of the sundews develop both male and female properties in order to self-pollinate. So just in case their pollinators did get caught by the traps, they would be able to reproduce on their own. Now, again, a bonus thing here, if you don't have the means to feed them, or for whatever reason can't feed them as often, you can always do cuttings, root cuttings, flower stalk cuttings, and we'll do another video on that, and leaf cuttings or leaf pullings to clone these plants and get a lot of them. I'll leave off with that very short video. Hopefully this brought you a lot of information. If you have any other questions about this that I did not cover, please don't hesitate to reach out to me via commenting here or any other Instagram. You can find me there. I'm happy to help it with any sort of questions that you have, any kind of comments or any sort of feedback that you have. Maybe I missed something that you found in your experiences better. The whole point of this channel, again, is to show not only how we can grow this on a budget, but how we can build this community together and help each other out. And then one final note on the topic of helping each other out. I also have a Facebook group called Carnivorous Plant Help for Beginners, which is growing very, very fast. We're close to, I think, 5,600 people now in the last 6-7 months, and it's growing about 100 people a day. And I'm very, very excited about that. And what's most rewarding and exciting about that is seeing all the people that we can help get into this hobby. So if you are interested in providing help, maybe you're looking for a little guidance yourself, go on over to Facebook and look up that group. One of the stipulations I have is that everybody treat each other with respect and be there to help each other out. That's what this community is all about. That's what growing carnivorous plants are all about. Our primary focus, one, is to preserve these plants to keep them from going extinct, but two is to just grow that community around each other, spread that love, and then just be there for each other. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. As always, have a wonderful day and a wonderful week. I'll see you soon.